back to the Weekly Driver Podcast, episode number 7. I'm co-host James Rea, editor and publisher of theweeklydriver.com, and I'm an automotive columnist for Bay Area News Group. My co-host is Bruce Aldrich, and today we're going to talk about Bruce's family car, a car that he now owns that his father bought new, 1959 Volkswagen Bug. If you like our podcast, consider supporting us via PayPal, and the PayPal address is james@jamesrea.com. Well, Bruce, welcome to episode number 7. This episode's all about you and your family and a 1959 Volkswagen Bug. So the car's now 58 years old. I'm sure you remember the car from when you were a boy. So tell me about your father buying this car and what you remember from when you first rode in it or drove in it, both.
Yes. Hi, good to be here. Love to talk about that Beetle, which I still own. My dad, we lived in Sacramento at the time. This is 1958, and my dad put a deposit in the local Sacramento dealership here for a Bug. They didn't have any. They were all sold out. So he put a deposit. He thought he was going to get a 1958 Bug, but the car didn't come in until December of 59, and it was a 59. So that was like a free bonus. He got a year model newer than he thought he was going to get.
Yes, great.
And I was looking, I still have the pink slip. I have everything that there is on that car. Every single piece of paperwork, every penny he put in gas. There's mileage books, everything on that car. So everything I might know, I certainly don't know it from memory, but I have a book that has every number in it. First off, when I got it in 2006, had 490,200 miles on it.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Anyway, going back to picking up the car, and I have the original pink slip and the actual, the sticker, the window sticker. They didn't call them Maroni stickers back then, but
yes.
The window sticker. The list price was $16.75, and he had leatherette, which I'm assuming means the leatherette style seats. It must have been an upgrade for $25.
$25. I would have gone for that too.
Ooh, yeah. So, and then $18.75 delivery charge.
Yeah, imagine that.
Anyway, the price came to $17, $18, and 75 cents in 1959. And also, when he got it, he went whole hog, and he had the dealer do undercoating, which the car still has. I think that was a good investment. They undercoated it well. And
58 years later, I'd say so.
It's still undercoated, so there's no rust on that thing. And he also got, this was all 6-volt circuitry, so he got a 6-volt. It's a tube Motorola AM radio, and that AM radio is still in there.
Oh, man.
And I listened to that AM radio, and I know my father always listened to the ball game on that all the time, that little Motorola AM radio, and it's still in the car.
Yeah. You know, if you ever watch Antiques Roadshow and somebody brings in a piece of art and they've got the history, they've got this, they've got stuff written down, they have all this, what do they call it, provenance or history of the, I wonder if they would ever allow a car into the Antique Roadshow. You've got everything known about that car, and it would add appreciably to the value, I'm sure. But it's great that you have all that history, that it lasted for all these years.
So back in the day, it was our only car back in 59.
Yes.
And so I'm now coming up on 5 years old. My spot was usually, there was 5 in the family. Mm-hmm. So my 2 sisters usually got the back seat, and I went behind the back seat. There's a little, in the old Bugs, there's a little sort of a grocery hold back there.
Yes.
And that's where my spot was back there in the little grocery hold underneath the rear window.
What a treat.
And that's how we traveled around, the 5 of us in that car. And we went, my dad put a trailer hitch on it.
Yes.
Of course, everybody knows how powerful a VW is. They gotta tow a trailer, don't you?
Is that 36 horsepower?
Yeah, 36 horsepower, 1200 cc.
Yeah.
And he had a trailer hitch on there, pulled a small trailer. Mm-hmm. So like when we went camping, we put all the camping gear in the trailer. The trailer was his uncle's too, from back in the, goodness, it was probably a 1930s trailer that we pulled in our 59 Bug. Can you imagine? Can you picture that now?
No.
Even at the time, going up Highway 80, up over the mountains into over Donner Summit, pulling a trailer with 5 kids in the car. Can you imagine how slow that was?
Oh,
I do that drive now. I do that drive now, and I can't hold 4th gear in that thing. I'm down to 3rd gear, so I'm going 40 miles an hour over the grade.
Yes,
which is a nightmare now. Back in the day, there were a lot of old Bugs, and the vans were even slower. So usually the Bugs weren't the slowest thing on the road. The vans were.
The vans were, and I think to add one, I remember as a boy growing up in Walnut Creek, and from time to time we'd go to Mount Diablo, and you'd see a Volkswagen Bug. Or you'd see a van going up, and they'd have, if I remember correctly, they'd have extra water bags to put on if there was a problem. They had these. I remember some people carrying big canvas water bags or something.
Well, I think, unless I'm confused, I'm thinking every car except the Bug would have water bags.
Oh, okay.
Because they're air cooled.
They're air cooled.
So the American cars would carry the water bags in case they boiled over.
Maybe I saw a converted one. Maybe I saw a converted one.
Well, maybe that one had a V8. When was this? Last year?
No. It was in the '60s. But I guess maybe it was something else. I'm just mistaken because my memory's a little foggy now.
The Bugs went so slow. Maybe it was a long time between water stops. Maybe you had to carry your own water.
Maybe you had to carry
like a mule team.
There you go. Maybe that's it.
So you didn't die of thirst out there.
So fast forward through your upbringing, and then. As you grow up and your father was elderly, you inherited the car and you basically rebuilt it?
Sure, yeah, I did some work on it. Basically, let me back up a little bit.
Please.
I learned to drive on that car
great.
as well as both my sisters. Mm-hmm. We took our driving test in the '59 Bug, the one I have today. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of history there. I know every little nick and scratch in that interior because it's the original interior.
Fantastic.
The seats have been covered.
Yeah.
But all the paint work and dials and gauges and all that stuff are original. So any little scratch or nick is, I can remember those scratches back when I was a teenager or younger, when like my dad and I were working on it and say we needed to replace the headlight switch or something, and they're hard to get off, and sometimes the screwdriver slips, and there's a little scratch in the paint.
Yeah, and you remember that.
I remember those. When I look at those scratches in the paint, I know where it came from. That's kind of interesting. On the my dad had a big ring, so on the steering wheel, right where you'd put your hand at the 9 o'clock, there's his ring scratch.
Great.
My mom usually always had her arm out the window or up on the sill, and her watch scratched up on the top.
Yes.
So
character.
There's character scratches like that all around. One thing I do recall, the back ashtray, we could never open it. I don't know why. What the deal was with that thing? Which maybe my dad had it sealed shut so the kids we wouldn't play with it. Anyway, that's one of the things I did. Like 45 years later, when I took the car over, I got that ashtray to work.
That's great.
Not that I used it, but I can pull. I could, because I guess I was so mad, during my teens to not be able to open that thing, something to play with.
And what was? Do you remember what the issue was? It just was.
No, it was just
something.
Just taking it apart, and there was just a tight metal.
I mean, you're a mechanic, and I'm not a mechanic on any level, but I had a '62 Bug, and I remember I was so proud of myself to be able to adjust the valves and to change the oil, and I even replaced the what do they call it? The rocker panels, the side panels. The rubber seal went out, and I got those new rubber mat things.
Running boards.
Running boards. Thank you. And so that's the 3 things that I could do, and that was the extent of my mechanical ability. But the car was so simple that a person like me who has virtually no knowledge could figure it out, and I did it. And I was really proud of doing that with the little feeler gauges and all that. It was great fun. But obviously, you did more than that. You did a lot.
Well, my dad, that's one thing the negative thing about that car, I've gotten over it now 20 years later, but the first 40 years, that car always represented work to me, and took my dad away from other things, because it seemed like he was, on a weekend, he was forever sitting on this, I'll call it a pickle barrel, a tall 3-foot pickle barrel, sitting with the bonnet up, working on this thing. Adjusting the valves, changing the points. You always have to change the points and condensers on those doggone things. That's one of the first things I did. Was I went to breakerless ignition, got rid of those points, because that was always a nightmare on those things. Best thing I ever did to that car was going breakerless. But I kept it stock other than that, and nobody can see that. Anyway, so the car represented a lot of work, which I didn't care for at first.
Yes.
It took me a while to get over that, because he was. Incidentally, I was mentioning that pickle barrel that he sat on. I still have that pickle barrel too, by the way. Of course,
great. That's great.
It's up in my. We have a place up near Tahoe, and that pickle barrel is up on my. We have sort of a museum type area, and some old sleds, old skis, an old canoe, and that pickle barrel is up there too.
And you didn't mention, where your place is, and I'll keep it very general, but the car is up there now as well, right?
Yeah. I keep the car up there all the time now, so it's always at 6,000 feet now.
There you go.
And an old 36 horsepower Bug, at sea level has got they claimed I think 36 horsepower, but that was on a good day,
right?
When the mares were frisky,
right.
But up there at 6,000 feet, it must take who knows how much, and probably takes another 20% of horsepower away. And the thing is a bit of a slug. But if you're going under 40 miles an hour, it's fun. That's why I leave it up there at 6,000 feet, because there's not many stop signs.
Right.
There's no traffic lights in town. And so it's just nothing beats a nice day and getting out there and driving that old Bug.
Through the years when you've driven that car, if you and I are, let's say, go to lunch, or you're with another friend, or I'm with my wife, or you're with your wife, and you see a vintage car of any type going by, particularly one that's almost 60 years old, have people commented over the years that they stop and talk to you about it? Because there aren't too many of them left, number one, and it has Volkswagen has a wonderful character unto itself. So can you remember getting comments and what an example might be? People have said?
Yes, all the time. You can always see the smiles and people pointing when I go through town, and everybody wants to look at that Bug, and everybody wants to tell a story. Basically, they come up. Oh, I had one of those, and when I was in college, and this and that, and I learned to work on cars, with Bugs, and so everybody has a story. They want to tell you about it. So that's fun. I have gone to a few car shows, these freebie type, where Saturday afternoons you meet at the local Red Robin or something type.
Yes. Free
car gatherings, and it's amazing what a hit an old Bug is, because everybody's had one. So everybody has a story. What I would consider nicer cars, the hot rods, and the I don't know, the 32 Fords and stuff that I want to look at.
Yes.
To me is interesting. People, I guess they don't have anything to say to a guy like that. I don't know.
Right.
Everybody has something to say to an old guy with an old Bug,
right?
Because they've had one. Everybody has a Bug story. Somebody's had one.
Right, and its origins, of course, for all the wrong reasons now, it's called the people's car, right? It's when it was originally made.
Right.
That was how it was commissioned in Germany as the people's car. So your point's well made that it was a common man's car, and like you said, everybody must have a story of either owning one, or a father owning one, or a brother or sister owning one, and that's great. People still remember, as well they should. It's I think it's the second best selling car in history now, other than the Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, the Corolla finally passed it.
But I do know now, also, I've forgotten now, it's 3 or 4 or 5 years since your father passed away, and I remember going to his memorial service, and you made this wonderful video, and one of the parts, you talked about your father's life and the different things that he did, and it was really well done. And at one point in the video, there's several seconds of your father driving the Bug, and then his elbow is outside of the driver's window, and then the video transitions into you sitting in the car with your forearm and elbow out the window with the same look on your face, and you look very much like your dad. So that was a very memorable part of your homage, if you will, your remembrance of your father. So what was that like, making that video, and could you keep a dry eye, or were you always? It must have been a very emotional experience to make that video.
Oh yeah, the video I made in the days after his death. So, the whole video was tough to make. But
yes,
that one scene that you're talking about, where I was trying to capture the image of the pass off.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an especially, I guess, emotional piece there.
Yes. I've never really been to a service where, there's always these kind of unwritten rules that people kind of remain in silence and you're remembering someone. But when that video that you made, was it 18 minutes, something like that, 20 minutes?
Yeah, about that.
About 18, 20 minutes, and people clapped, and everybody in the church was crying. So, I mean, it was this odd respect for what you did and respect for your father, and I'm sure that there were a lot of guys in particular in that audience that could relate to it, because many guys have inherited their mother and father's car. So it was a very loving thing to make for your dad. So I'll never forget being there and watching that. So that's great. And you have the car now, and you mentioned earlier that new, with every little extra charge, $25 here and delivery charge here, the car was $1,718.75 or 95 cents. And now, being nearly 60 years old, have you investigated what the car might be worth today? And are there quite a few of them around, or is it getting to be pretty rare?
Yeah, the 59s they're going to the scrap heap. There's not as many around. It looks like, it's hard to say. This one is in, it's in pretty good shape. It's anyway around $12,000 is what it's worth now. Mm-hmm. People were just throwing those things away because they weren't worth $12. Back in the 70s.
Back in the 70s.
So they're coming up now.
Do you drive it much when you're in the Lake Tahoe region? How often do you drive it, and would it be safe to drive from that area, and how often have you driven it from there to Sacramento and back?
Well, for 3 or 4 years, I drove it up to Tahoe at the beginning of the summer and then drove it home before the snows hit.
Yes.
But the last, I bet it's been up for 4 years now. I just leave it up there because that's where the most fun driving is.
Yes.
So I don't even bother to bring it back to Sacramento.
Yes.
When I was going between here and Sacramento now, I could leave Tahoe and come to Sacramento because it's all downhill.
Downhill, yes.
I could drive it kind of like a normal person. Mm-hmm. But when I was going uphill, I would leave at like 4 in the morning to try to get up there before the public got around.
Right.
Because that's just too slow. I just feel like it's not that safe. Yes. I didn't think. Anyway, you were mentioning back when I took over the car.
Yes.
In 2006. Now, up until that time, it was a daily driver because it had 490,000 plus miles on it.
Yes. Oh, that's
But my dad kept it up. So it's on its 3rd motor now.
Yes.
Rebuild. And it's on its 3rd paint job. Always the same color.
Yes.
The original color was Kalahari Beige, it was called. So
wow, what a great name.
It's a tan.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kept it stock. He had like I say, seat covers, and whenever it needed something, he repaired it. So when I got it in 2006, it didn't need rebuilding because it was kept up.
Yes.
Now, I did some stuff to it, like I put new running boards on it.
Yes.
And I put the breakerless points in it, the ignition system, and a couple other little things like that. Cleaned it up, painted, the floorboards and stuff. But basically, that's all I did was just some beauty items. Oh, I know one thing that he did in the 59s had these really teeny little taillights that were about 2 by 3 inch in diameter.
Yes.
And so in 63, the big ones came out, and they were probably, 5 by 4 inch.
Yes.
So my dad converted them to the 63 taillights. So one of the first things I did was put the original 59, which he kept, of course. Like I say, I have everything.
That's
so great. I put those original 59 taillights back on it.
Yes.
Because on a 59, that's one of the things how you tell how old it is. You can't
That's
hardly
right.
tell the difference on those cars through the different years, but the taillight's a dead giveaway that it's a 63 or newer.
I know the very old Volkswagens had the split window in the back, and then maybe the car that you have, I haven't seen it for a while, has a much smaller window. And then as the years went by, I think 67 is when they stopped using chrome fenders. I'm remembering. What is the legacy of the sizes of the windows, and what size is your car?
Well, in 58, they came out with a bigger window. So,
yeah.
Excuse me. The 58, 59 have the little bit bigger window. So 57 and 56, I think, was an oval.
Mm-hmm.
And 55 and back was a split oval.
Split window, okay.
So that would be the most desirable, to have a split or at least an oval. Unfortunately, I missed it by 3 years.
Yeah, that would be the most. I think a few years ago at one of the Monterey Auto Shows, we saw and we talked to a man and his son who bought a Bug from the early 50s, and they actually shipped it from Germany. Remember, were you with me then? I forgot if you were with me. And when they got it, and they're taking it from Germany to the U.S., they asked, the customs people asked for a serial number, and it was one of the original ones, and so they got into some kind of sort of trouble getting that original low serial number from Germany to the U.S., but they finally did it. And so we saw this beautiful, I don't know, what do you call that? The dull gray finish, dark gray finish that they used to have. And one of our friends thought it was the primer coat, but it wasn't. It was the original paint, and it had the split window. So I had never seen one before until that time, but they were very, very proud of it. And actually they were selling it, and they wanted some astronomical amount for it. I can't remember what it was, but everybody was looking at that car at one of the Monterey Auto Shows. So
yeah, the serial number on this, I think, is only about 6 digits.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I guess they didn't require them until some late year, so I'm not quite sure why. Obviously,
yes.
They'd already made a couple million, probably. I think there was maybe, like, if I recall now, the history on the 59, they had like maybe 400,000 or 500,000 of those they built.
Yes.
Not all imported to the U.S., of course, but just worldwide were built at the time.
Yes.
And then it exploded to, I don't know, they made 3, 4, 5 million a year after a while.
Right. Now, when we were talking to a friend a couple of episodes ago who has a Ferrari, and he talked about people, when they made a part, sometimes they'd make 100 of them because the original parts weren't available, or if there was an original part available, they were over the top. Volkswagen, obviously, we know that there's been, 21, 22 million of them sold. So if you needed something that would be unique to Volkswagen, are the parts readily available?
Yes. I think when you get back to about, say, 57, then they're a little more difficult. Mm-hmm. But back through at least to 59, they're quite readily available. Well, I have to mail order for them, but they're available mail order. And a lot of times you'll have your choice whether you want Mexican parts.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Or German parts, and the German parts cost 4 times as much.
Right.
And they don't. The ones I've gotten, like the window seals and stuff, German ones, they don't really. They don't see. I think it was Germany via Mexico.
Right.
They're not that good.
I remember one other thing about Volkswagen. We haven't talked about this, or maybe we did once a long time ago. Is that on my Bug, one of the original attractions, I bought it from a family friend, and I paid all of $500 for it, was it still had what we used to call the SCUS button, right? The emblem on the front. And as I had it when I was 16 or 17, and I had it for 4 or 5 years, every time I went somewhere to school or sporting event or whatever, and I came out and I thought, oh, it's still there, because it became very popular for people to steal those things because they were so beautiful, and you could just pop them right off. You could, if you wanted to, you could steal it in, 10 seconds or something. But does your car still have that? And do you remember through the years with your father, was that an issue growing up as a boy that people would steal those things left and right?
The Wolfsburg.
That's right.
Yeah, I know my dad had his stolen a couple times, and
yes.
For a long time he didn't have one. And then sometime back in early 80s, I saw one at a swap meet and gave it to him, and he put that on, so it always had one. But then later, after I got the car, I had forgotten, but that was really the wrong one for that year. So that I had like I don't know, who knows, a 62 on this 59. So that's another one of the things I did, was I got the original 59 Wolfsburg emblem to put back on. So those are the little things that I did that were kind of important to me to try to make it original again. That through the years my dad, let slip.
Yes. Well, that's a great family history of that car, and someday, if I ever have a chance, I'd love to go. I think I went in a ride with you one time since we've been friends, but I'd love to go in it again sometime. that would be our episode number 7 for this week. It was great to chat with my co-host Bruce Aldrich about his 1959 Bug and its family history and stories of his dad and the things he's done to the car since. So thanks for joining us, and remember to visit my website, www.theweeklydriver.com, and Bruce's website, www.tahoetruckyoutdoor.com. If you'd like to support our program, you can do so via PayPal. It's james@jamesrea.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Bye.